What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over why the Wrecker Revolver is the best weapon in Fortnite Season 4. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what you think of the Wrecker Revolver this season. So if you guys were unaware, this is a pistol that functions in pretty much every way like a shotgun, but its range is incredible, and its benefit for aiming in is also very high, which kind of adds to its consistency and adds to its range when you are aiming in for those longer range shots. Like I said, though, it is a shotgun, basically. It shoots shotgun shells, it shoots a spread of pellets, and then you get damage based on how many pellets you hit, like every other shotgun. And because this weapon is basically a shotgun, it's very easy to hit enemies, because if they are in your crosshair at all, you will get some amount of damage on them. When you're using something like the hammer AR or the OXR rifle, and you're spraying at somebody and your crosshair is very large, each shot you shoot has like a chance to hit the enemy, but you can have, half your crosshair occupied by the enemy and hit no shots and get no damage. Whereas this, if your crosshair is on them at all and they're within 100 meters, which we'll get to in a moment, you will get damage on them. It might not always be the best damage. It might be only like 20 damage, but you will get some damage. And this works very well when chasing enemies that are trying to escape, because you could just easily tag them with this over and over and over again. And while I said the damage might not be the greatest in those situations, it's better than nothing at all. And the fact that you don't really need to worry about aiming it that much, you just need to have your crosshair on the opponent at all, helps you kind of stay mobile, helps you keep pace, and helps you keep pressure on them if you are chasing them, which is something that's going to happen a good amount this season. So often this season, you will kind of close the gap on somebody, and then they just shockwave away. And if you're using one of the other shotguns, your shotgun is now pointless and you got to swap to your AR and start shooting them, or shockwave after them and maybe shoot your AR while chasing. But with the shotgun pistol, you can shoot them as they're shockwaving away from you with it, no problem. And then also chase them while tagging them with it, no problem. Much easier than any other weapon, and getting much more damage than you would with any other shotgun. A lot of times you wouldn't be getting any damage with any other shotguns in those ranges. The medallions this season are also really good at creating separation. The double jump medallion, if you double jump over somebody, the sentinel pump is hitting for like nothing at that point, But with this, you can kind of double jump and shoot down at people, no problem. And then the inverse of this is also true. If you're playing against the medallions and they have, and you have like the other shotguns, you're going to have a hard time doing anything to them. And then the slide medallion is a similar way. You can slide, you get that boosted slide, and so it's easier for you to create separation on people, which kind of plays the ranged aspect of this pistol plays well with both these medallions, I think. And when you have both of them at the same time and you have that double jump and you have that improved slide, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to be very slippery, and just the fact that you don't have to worry about range because this pistol has so much of it is really good. Like, talking about the range of this pistol, the damage fall off for it does not start until 22 meters. And then it will continue to decline from that point forward until it stops dealing damage at 100 meters, which is a lot for a shotgun. For comparison, the sentinel pump starts its drop off at 6.5 meters and then stops dealing damage at 29.5 meters. So while this weapon is still, just started to get drop off, the sentinel pump isn't doing anything. The Oni shotgun was a shotgun in early Chapter 6 that was considered to have really good range. And its drop-off started at 15 meters, and it stopped dealing damage at 55. So even compared to the best ranged shotgun of the chapter, this new pistol blows it out of the water, has almost double the range in terms of it dealing damage, which a lot of times at that far range, you wouldn't be getting any damage anyways, but it just goes to show how much more range this pistol has. And the fact that it has 8 rounds instead of 2 that the Oni had makes it, a lot more reliable to actually use at those ranges. Its base stats are also quite good. The gold version has a body damage of 90 and a max damage of 160. And the common has a body damage of 74 and then a max damage of 140. And then obviously the other rarities just fall somewhere in between there. The damage is obviously much lower than the sentinel pump, or a decent amount lower than the sentinel pump. But this pistol also has a fire rate of 1.38. So it's essentially an auto shotgun, and you can just hold down the fire button the entire time you're using it, and it will continue to fire full auto. It just doesn't have the fastest fire rate for auto shotguns. One thing that is also really unique about this shotgun pistol is that even though it is basically a shotgun, since the game classifies it as a pistol, you don't have the 1.5-second delay when shooting this and then swapping to another shotgun. Meaning you could combo this with something like the Sentinel Pump and swap back and forth and get, back-to-back high damage shots. Or you could go back and forth between 2 revolvers and have, essentially double pump with a shotgun that has incredible range. And I've seen some discussion about this online on like whether or not it's worth using 2, because it's not like the fire rate is bad on its own. It's just not like great on its own, It's like somewhere in the middle ground between shooting really fast and, shooting too slow. I think it is worth using double if you are good at using double. So I'll have an example on screen now where I was shooting 6 shots with double and then 6 shot with a single one. And shooting 6 shots with 2, swapping back and forth, took 3.09 seconds. And to shoot 6 shots without swapping, just staying on 1 the entire time, took 3.4 seconds. So the difference in fire rate when using 2 is not like astronomical. However, you're gonna be basically 1 shot ahead on the person that's using a single one. And in a shotgun fight, that can be all the difference. If you're using like ARs or SMGs, 1 shot ahead isn't the biggest deal. But when the weapon can deal up to, 160 damage with a perfect shot, if you get that, last shot off before the enemy does, that's going to be the difference maker. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know in like these close range shotgun fights, milliseconds can be, everything and really change the tide of a fight. So I personally enjoy using 2 of them, and I've enjoyed playing like that thus far this season. But I don't think it's required to use 2 to get, value out of this pistol. But like I said, I think if you have a fight happening where one player is using 2 and they're decent at swapping and they're decent at aiming while doing so, I think they should have a huge advantage over the person using 1 because they're just getting their second shot off faster. And that will ultimately, that should decide the tide of the fight. Obviously, their aim might suck. The other person might hit a harder shot. Whatever. Fortnite is a game where things can really vary, but I do think using 2 gives you a decent advantage in those like close range shotgun fights. There is also a Mythic version that you can get from defeating the boss at the Hive, which has 95 body damage and then a 165 damage cap, so just a little bit better than the legendary one. And there's also an exotic version, which you can find in the bunkers. And this one is interesting. It has a lower base damage than the other ones at like 60 something, I think. But it also has a higher headshot multiplier and a damage cap of 180. So the hardest hitting one is actually the exotic, even though it starts with worse damage. This exotic also has a faster fire rate when hip firing. And when hip firing the exotic, it actually is faster than swapping. So if you just only wanted to use 1 and you hate swapping and you hate worrying about that, then getting the exotic from the bunker would probably be your best bet. And as I said, you can just hold the fire button down. And that is one thing about double pump that I feel like a lot of people don't know, especially people who weren't around back in the day, is you can actually hold your fire button down the entire time and then just swap after your weapon shoots and keep doing that. And if your fire button is held when you swap to something, it will shoot once it's ready to shoot. There's like a brief swap delay, but once it's ready to shoot, it'll shoot. I personally don't like just holding down the fire button and then tapping the swap ones. I like tapping my fire button when I'm ready to shoot. But as far as getting the perfect timing goes, holding is better. And, for some people, they find that makes double pumping easier. One thing that is also different about this versus a lot of the other shotguns is that aiming in gives you a huge advantage. The crosshair is significantly smaller and significantly more accurate. And so I'm someone who often doesn't recommend aiming in with shotguns, but with this one, you're probably going to want to aim in when it's right to do so. So if you're in like a very close range fight, kind of jumping around, stopping to aim in could get you killed. But if you're playing off any sort of cover and you can, have time to aim in and hit the shot on the enemy, that's something that can really turn the tide of the fight and give you a really high damage. If someone's trying to shockwave away from you or run away from you and you're shooting at them, when you aim in, your damage is going to be a lot better. Also, I talked about earlier how the medallions really play into this pistol well. If you're able to like double jump over somebody and then land behind them, at that point, maybe going for an aimed in headshot would be something that wouldn't cost you as much HP as if you didn't have that double jump medallion. And then the slide one is the same way. Both of these medallions just make it easy for you to kind of break the enemy's camera and get behind them or get to the side to them. And those can create opportunities for you to aim in and hit a really hard shot with this pistol. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. As always, if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, comment down below what you think of the Wrecker Revolver, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.